We're back doing the recap. Hey, it's Chris. June is well past us at this point. What were the highs and lows on crowdfunding, as well as where do my thoughts go on what I played, including one or two on crowdfunding on that side of things. So maybe we'll just do a 2-for-1 with a few of those. But as always, this was a really good month for me in terms of plays. Not the highest of the year by any means, but just a good variety of things as well. You ready? Let's go straight into it. And I covered a couple of these on my best crowdfunding, or my most well-received crowdfunding campaigns of the year from earlier in the month. And specifically, Agricola and the deck overload, if you will. The absolute FOMO-driven deck situation that Agricola did for millions and millions of dollars. $1 million! If you get that Austin Powers reference, my kids are not going to have a clue about that in 5 years, 10 years, or whatever it may be. But again, I just have to say, Awakened Realms has a real grasp around the neck of people's wallets on the crowdfunding side of things. Sorry, mid-video, cat got out in the garage, oh my gosh, what's going to happen, situation, interruption, if you will. But where I was going with that was Awakened Realms just seems to be, I don't want to say in tune, but it seems to be I have tendrils into backers' wallets about what they're just freaking willing to throw money at the screen in regards to, right? And I just have to wonder, what's next? Because although I love the idea of a zombie-side Agricola, you've seen it now with Puerto Rico, you saw it with Castles of Burgundy, you've seen it with Agricola. What other big-name, oldie but goodie reprint hasn't gotten the over-deluxification pixie dust dropped on it at this point that you would expect or that you would want to see in the future? What would be that game for you that they come back with their glazing over of more pretty aesthetics with plastification and a bigger box that you can't take to anyone's house or game night elsewhere that you would shell money for? Is there one like that? I'm not sure, but that's always the premise, is because you can't think of one, but then all of a sudden they pull one out of the woodwork that says, yeah, maybe right? Caverna, Power Grid, Le Havre, I'm mispronouncing that last one, I'm sure, but like, those are the ones from yesteryear that aren't like within the last 3 to 5 years on the Board Game Geek Top 100, or that aren't from super big publishers that would get the Awakened Realms message and say, nah, thanks, this is our property. Or maybe we'll just get a Nemesis 4 instead, right? Subsequently, also, Lord of the Rings Confrontation just ended with that whole, we're going to keep the campaign extended for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours if someone pledges $1 extra sort of situation that keeps going on, which I was going to pull a whole little short out on, and I have some strong opinions on, but you know what? Nah, I don't have strong opinions on anything. I don't think I'm right. I just like stating things out there and throwing my opinion out there and seeing what it sticks to and what it bounces off of sometimes. I really honestly don't think I'm correct absolutely, on all of the things that I say, because that's the main criticism I've heard of my channel, is that he is too sure of himself. He thinks he's right on everything. No, I think I'm an idiot on everything that just is willing to put out his opinion a little bit stronger out there sometimes. So that's really what you get on this channel more than anything else, because again, I am an idiot. I have no qualms about saying that. Now, though, Lord of the Rings, the Confrontation. The more I looked into this, the more I desired it, and also the further I got away from actually backing it. Because I looked at this with the little sleeve standee things, and I said, if they all have these individual little aesthetic placements, and the actual functional use of them when you're laying them out there just looked worse and worse and worse. From like a balance, from a use, from a just how are you going to smash these together to see if they actually need to. And I saw a lot of other similar concerns about the actual, beyond aesthetic, because again, I love the art aesthetic in this. I like it a lot. just the actual use of it. And I think it was designed to be pleasing to the eye first. And some of these engineering aspects that go along with this weren't maybe as high on the list. And I would love to be proven wrong on this. I would love to see some adaptation, some ingenuity, and some actual just, between now and when it gets delivered. And so if that's the case, I'll easily mea culpa, eat it, and buy one on the secondary market, trade for one on the secondary market, pick it up in that way. But right now, that was just my concern, and I don't really know what to make of some of the extra gameplay content, so I just had to say pass. What's really going to cheese me in a slight way is if the gameplay content extras, I don't care about foils. If the gameplay content extras aren't available at retail, that's going to piss me off a bit. But is it enough to be the determining factor on whether or not I buy it? Probably not either in that regard. So the two I had personal hands-on with, we'll also talk about, because I think that both of them are worth talking about from not just my own personal feelings, but objective, he's not objective, semi-objective look at from a gameplay standpoint. Colosseum cannot be argued that it is a great, long-standing game. And for it to come back with a slightly upgraded aesthetic, it is prettier to look at. No lie. Can't dispute that, whether or not it's for you, but I prefer the newer edition. And the gameplay changes that they did, it was like one of those games that I've mentioned many times on this channel of El Grande and Hansa. Ones that I never really gave a chance to because, again, the theme, and when I started out in this hobby, like the mechanics were of absolutely zero interest altogether. But it won me over. Am I good at it? No, I'm terrible. But that's also the sign of a good game in some ways, right? You're terrible at it. You lose by a significant portion, and you can still recognize, that's at least what I do with my reviewer hat on, the quality and the just absolute good posturing that it has from that regard. To be able to separate those two out is why, you go to certain people and certain reviewers or certain things in that sense. Because whether or not I personally like some of those mechanics, I can appreciate what it's doing in a great or not so great manner. And I think some of those changes, not having played the first one, but seeing how those changes are and then seeing what it did previously, I'd say, oh yeah, that would have been an issue previously for me. And I like this change. Am I going to say it's perfect? No. And is it still over deluxeified? Yes. But in the same sense that we'll talk about with Realm of Reckoning here in a minute, it's still a game, and the reference there was to the over deluxeification, not the gameplay, that Colosseum should be something that you should try, just like those other two that I previously mentioned. It still might not be for you, but it definitely changed my mind in terms of the vibe and the mechanics. But just like, similarly, also with Realm of Reckoning, you need to have the group that will enjoy it more so than anything else. Because there is some pandering, back and forthing, and potentially need for trading to maximize it from that regard. Speaking of Realm of Reckoning, though, let's just get right into it. And Realm of Reckoning sits a special place for me because I wasn't expecting to like the monumental end game, end round scoring, changing dynamic as much as I did. And I do really like it. I think it's going to piss people off. I think the last place person getting extra points one is going to be very controversial, like I said in my video. But I think it's bringing something a little bit more in that regard. And I like it, honestly. And as someone who's played pretty much all of the IB Studios games to this point, in the previous outtake, I said Awakened Realms instead of IB Studios, right? That's how I've got it on the brain. I really enjoyed it more than almost anything not named Mythic Mischief and plus or minus Veiled Fate. It's going to be easier. Dynamically doesn't require as much of that than Veiled Fate. Although Veiled Fate is probably an easier access in terms of the rules overhead. So I kind of went back and forth on it. So we'll see what the final product looks like. but easily better than several of their previous ones. For me, personally speaking, again, only speaking for myself, better than Tend, better than Fractured Sky, better than Moonrakers. I can't really, say anything otherwise than that. So putting that out there as well. The other big campaigns: the return to Isofarian Guard, the return to Black Rose Wars, the return to Machina Arcana. All met with varying degrees of relatively, success. Same thing with the currently, at the time of me filming this, ending Paperback Adventures. So this continues the trend, not to mention Catacombs is coming back and Wild Gardens came back. The trend of just giving us more of things that people are willing and enjoyed previously throwing money at. And again, I say that tongue-in-cheek because I'm not saying that's a bad thing. In some ways, I think this is almost better. Because if you really are a huge fan of any one of those that I mentioned, and you love it, and it's been played more than twice, that it's worth potentially spending more money on something like that more so than the potential of something that's going to fill the hole in my gaping board game heart that I'm still searching for that thing of, that inevitably, oftentimes, more times than not, will not do any way, shape, or form that exact thing, especially on the crowdfunding when it's still a frickin' unknown. And so, as much as people moan and groan about, Black Rose Wars is coming back with the fourth one, Machina Arcana is coming back with the fourth one, why can't they come up with anything else? Catacombs Alpha is the new edition of Catacombs. Folks, if you like this stuff and you know it, it's a much safer situation for them on the business side and for you as I know this, I like this. I mean, it's why things like Aeon's End continue to sell well. It's why people have a mother freaking obsession with Kingdom Death Monster. To a negative degree sometimes with that one as well, but I get myself in trouble otherwise. And so I don't begrudge those going that way as well from a company side of things. Free loan or not, whatever you want to say, I'm not going to get into that argument, but it makes sense. And so I'm going to lump them all together in that regard. Then I think the last one we're actually going to mention on too in this way is Champions of Rokugan. I have no clue what to make of this, right? This could be one of the best cooperative games to fund on crowdfunding in 2025. It also has a very low basement, if that makes sense. I just don't know how good it could be in the mechanical, give me something different standpoint. I think The Legend of the Five Rings is an absolutely outstanding, just thematic world to incorporate games in. But when you're kind of doing this semi-co-op thing, best winner style of things, I just am a little bit concerned about how well that gets integrated and if it's a selling point or not. Because I don't see many games pull that off well. And then that's fine. You can just ignore it like most people do, I feel like, in Marvel Legendary or Dead of Winter. But I also just go, okay, how big of a situation is that going to be going forward as well? I guess, actually, take that back. Deeper regrets, even deeper regrets. The whole subtitle of my channel as a whole, I give them a lot of kudos because this is just exceeded expectations, exceeding funding goals. It reminds me of something like Midara almost, where the first campaign flew under the radar. It was so well received that the second campaign blew things out of the water. Just like Midara, just like I've said repeatedly though, don't FOMO greener in that way. And again, that's my shorthand legism for saying other people are enjoying this very luck-driven, very luck-dependent card draw. What you get is going to determine who's going to win in that way style of things. If you like the randomness, the chaos, and the luck factor like I do a lot of the time, might be a very good game for you. However, it's also the epitome of I see so-and-so, I see Board Game Co., I see Dice Tower, I see insert big reviewer, random reviewer, small reviewer, love this game, influenced me into buying it. Don't do it from that side of things. It has the biggest appearance of that for me of recent last 4 or 5 months easily, maybe all of 2025. And again, I don't throw shade at any of those people. I don't throw shade at the company. I'm throwing shade at people taking suggestions when they don't know if the game is actually right for them. Like I always say, the game may be right for me, but it has to be right for you. I don't care if this game is a 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100, an infinity out of infinity, as my 4-year-old would say. It has to be that for you, not because it works that way for me. I love Wiz War. It is a completely flawed and utterly luck-driven take that the best person doesn't win style game that you might ever play. King of Tokyo is a total random dice chucking, anyone wins at any point. I have several games in this manner that we've been playing in my family. The 4-year-old should not be able to win and can, because they're totally driven by randomness and chaos rather than anything skill-wise. And is this, to that extent, probably not with deep regrets. But if you don't like that style, there's nothing mechanically that's probably going to change with the expansion, I would wager. I don't know the exact details of it. It's been a hot minute since I've looked. But if it stays true to the core game of what won people over in the first place, it's probably not going to stray too far from the formula of success that they have already found and achieved with. So that has to be thrown out there as well. So then what were my best played of the month? Because, that's what you really want to know, right? We've already talked about a few of them, and that was the aforementioned Realm of Reckoning, as well as Colosseum. So those are near the top. I'm not going to do them in order this month because talking about those already sort of would splay things completely out of bleh. But let's talk about the other highs that I played as well. Okay, Ace of Spades from Devere getting a later release this fall. If you like Balatro, the poker-driven video game, this is the closest thing and clearly has an influence derived from that. Is it exactly that? No. Is it still a random luck fest in terms of the deck and the dealing and the poker style where you discard stuff to try and get the ones you need? Yeah. Can you mitigate a little bit? Yes. Can you mitigate enough to have a significant difficulty curve? No. And what I mean by that is, if that makes sense, you can't mitigate all the way enough to potentially outdo some of the luck factor that's going to be there, even though you have one-off powers and passive powers. I would like a little more just different powers overall that are achieved by the bosses that you beat. So you beat a card, an enemy, and it becomes the power that you keep. And I think that they are almost too directly tied in. So like if an enemy is the one that negates the use of spades, for example, as part of your poker hand, well, the enemy's power is almost that in reverse, so that spades can be used in more ways. Or if the enemy is immune to the full house, you then subsequently deal extra damage when you play a full house after you beat that enemy. And so the great thing about Balatro is that the jokers are just all over the place. There's tons of them. And so I think this is ripe for an expansion in that regard, but I would like to see more of that. And the difficulty curve is significant. It ramps up very quickly. At the end of the game, essentially, you have 4 hands to deal like 50 points of damage, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you start realizing that a pair does 1 damage and a full house does like 6, and full houses are not easy to get. I'm making that up off the top of my head, so don't quote me from the rule book if I'm wrong, because I don't have it in front of me, but it's something akin to that. A full house gets you 6-ish. So if I play 4 full houses, that's half of what I potentially need. that's what you're going to have to deal with some of those powers, which are sometimes close to enough, but they're not always quite anywhere near what you need. So you have to be very smart. But if you hold on to them, you won't even make it, because you have to do through like 12 different encounters in order to make it there in the first place. So great game. Know what you're going into, though. Speaking of great games and knowing what you're going into, also similarly talking about in that same video, DC Forever. Again, I think WizKids, do I actually have it? Yeah, right here. Oh, actually, Ace of Spades is right there too. I am a freaking idiot. Okay, you knew that if you made it to this part of the video. Also, very, very surprising in a good way. But again, if you don't know what you're getting into with this is more Marvel Champions in the resource sense of how you're playing your cards, but it's a little bit more analysis paralysis deck building in the term of you have 2 characters out and you have a starting deck made up of their starting cards. You have their rest of their deck sitting in your reserve that you can buy from. You have 2 of his sets in the form of 2 additional heroes or enemies that you can then summon and then start to deck build from that. Has a vague-ish Netrunner vibe. I agree with that, because you'll have locations that you're either rescuing or capturing civilians from. The mixed thing I feel about is the unaligned heroes villains that you can semi-take control of to your side, but the mechanical approach is something familiar-ish, but done in a different spin. The rulebook it still needs some work, like the Captain's Chair rulebook, where, again, I feel like it needed more fine-tuning from people that hadn't played the game as a whole. But the thematic incorporation of the cards from the individual heroes and villains feels unique. It is potentially very take that, because you're trying to either knock out your opponent's characters or succeed in capturing enough of these citizens to achieve your goals. Like the heroes just need to save a certain amount, and the villains need to capture a certain amount to accomplish 5 schemes. It is potentially a little bit skewed in my very limited play set of the villains. I would compare that more to like a 1 versus all. Not that it's unbalanced. I haven't played it enough to say it's unbalanced, right? Like no one plays it enough unless you're on like Board Game Arena 24/7. Sorry. And what I mean, though, is a 1 versus all situation where if you've played a lot of those games, the 1 is harder because you have to have a better mastery of the game overall, and the all is easier because it's an easier entry point and it's a little bit less up here, sometimes cerebral. And that's what this gives me. The heroes have to be very cerebral, very smart. The villains are very smash in your face in that way, require a little bit less nuance in some of their approach. And I don't say that as a bad thing. I say it as it's pretty good. And this is ripe for expansions. Ripe for expansions. I think the designer actually said on Board Game Geek forums that they've got plenty of ideas. It just has to be successful enough. So it is a very, very solid mechanical game, and it's probably better for me than Captain's Chair. I like Captain's Chair, but it's a slog and it's a hard play. So it is what it is. Then that was pretty much it for a lot of the new stuff, a lot of retreads. We taught the 4-year-old how to play Ticket to Ride First Journey Europe. He loves it. Loves it, loves it, loves it. Can't quite win. We let him cheat a little bit in terms of grabbing the rainbow train cars and not making that the only card he can grab. So that mitigates a little bit, but he's getting better. We played an absolute freaking ton of Trio. Trio, the most played game of the month, very likely the most played game of the year. Trio Nana. I have the Japanese version. It's Nana, but it's an absolutely fantastic game as well in that regard. And then we played a little bit of Deception Murder in Hong Kong, which, spoilers, is actually going to be one of the most played games for me in July, because we brought that game on my yearly vacation with my wife's family, and the kids absolutely went crazy over it. I was not expecting this. I was hoping the adults would. No, the kids wanted to play it repeatedly on their own after I taught them. Are they good at giving clues? Heck no. Did they have a hell of a lot of fun doing it? Heck yes. And then, again, the 4-year-old found KLASK, and so we played a fair bit of KLASK as well. So that was my highs, lows, and everything else in between of June. Let me know what you think. Comments, questions, concerns, How was your gaming going? You know what? I've really let down in terms of my 10 by 10 of keeping track of that and updating you. So I'll tell you how bad I'm doing and why I changed some of my games maybe in the near future too. So thanks for watching. Peace out. Stay classy. Sub me? Yeah, let's do it.
Stupid Toshi pushed his way out into the garage.